Hi, so we're on to part 2 of chapter 7. Um, Part 1 was dumb, and it served no purpose to the plot whatsoever. Well, no, it didn't. Okay, part 2. Max sat in the operations vehicle, her eyes glued to the monitors as Gage and the entire SWAT team finished their sweep of the first floor of the Fleabag Motel and headed up the stairs at both ends of the building. Despite being worried to death about what came next, she was glad they were finally done with the ground floor, because what she'd seen there was going to haunt her for a very long time. From what Mac had been able to piece together, a local gang had been having some kind of initiation party on the first floor when a rival gang had shown up and started shooting. Gang number 1 had returned fire, and what started out as a party had quickly turned into a bloodbath. This goddamn gang. Maybe it was that biker gang. Oops. Oh no! I accidentally changed the page. Okay, here we are. The cops had gotten there in time to force the gun-wielding survivors of both gangs up to the second floor of the motel, where they'd barricaded themselves in several rooms. Unfortunately, each gang had taken the people staying at the motel hostage, and were ready to kill all of them, if they hadn't already. When G. Gage and the rest of the SWAT team had arrived, the uniformed officers were still trading fire with the gangs on the second floor. It had been like a war zone, with the gangs taking shots at each other as well as the cops and anyone else who came within sight of the motel. After making her promise to stay in the operations vehicle parked 4 blocks away, Gage and the rest of the SWAT team immediately headed into the fray, not to take out the thugs, but try to rescue any of the hotel guests still inside. She'd almost turned off the monitors when she'd seen all the carnage there. Any remaining thought that the SWAT team was crooked, dirty, or anything other than the biggest bunch of heroic, dedicated cops she'd ever seen in her life was gone now. Gage and his men had gone into the motel over and over, carrying out the wounded while being shot at the whole time. Soon. Mac held her breath as Gage reached the second floor. The 2 gangs had knocked out windows and piled up furniture to barricade themselves behind, while they used up what seemed like an unlimited supply of ammunition. She knew Gage and his team were good at their jobs, but she didn't know how this was going to end well. Her hands were freaking shaking, and she was so scared. Gage was going in there, and she suddenly realized she didn't want him to. She's only known him 2 days. The audio system in the operations vehicle was tied into the headsets every SWAT officer wore, so why the hell couldn't she hear anything? She darted from one monitor to the next, but the men moved so fast it was making her dizzy. She wasn't even sure where everyone was. A minute ago, Gage had been on the stairwell. Now he looked as if he was on some kind of gravel surface. Where the hell was he? On the ground behind the building? That made no sense at all. Several men suddenly kneeled down in front of Gage's camera, and she had only a second to identify one of them as Cooper before they scattered again. She almost screamed in frustration. Gage's voice came over the speaker. 3, 2, 1, go! There was a thunderous boom and a flash of light, then chaos. Mac's heart pounded harder, almost drowning out the sound coming over the speakers. What the hell good were cameras if everything on the monitors was too fast and jarring to comprehend? There was bright flashes of light, then the pop of gunshots, followed by ear-shattering cacophony of automatic weapons being fired. Screams and shouts turned into cries of pain, but they were barely audible over the low, angry growls the SWAT team made. She'd heard the same thing when Mike and Xander had led their squads into the pitch-black office building the first day. Only this time it was much louder. She closed her eyes, unable to look at the monitors any longer. Why the hell was she so terrified? She'd been in situations like this before. Heck, she'd been shot at 6 times in the course of her career, and even been near an explosion once, but she'd never been this scared. Who'd have thought that was the case? I mean, God, what the fuck has she done to, kind of show us this? Because she wasn't the one in danger. The man she cared about was. And that made it worse. She prayed Gage and his man made it through this safely. Mac didn't know how long she sat there with her eyes closed, but when she opened them again, an eerie kind of quiet had descended upon the motel. She could still hear moans and whimpers and the occasional sob, but no gunfire. Then Mike's voice came over the speaker. 1 clear. 2 clear, said Xander. 3 clear, reported Cooper. The SWAT team was calling in by some kind of number pattern, letting Gage and everyone else know they were alive and that their area of responsibility had been cleared. She held her breath as 15 numbers were announced. All clear, Gage said. Get the EMTs in here. Max slumped down in the seat, more exhausted than if she'd run a marathon. Behind her, the doors of the operations vehicle opened. She jerked around to see Zach stick his head in. Everyone's running inside. What happened? Mac had completely forgotten that Zach had been outside taking pictures of the scene. I'm not sure, but I think everyone's okay, she said. I heard all of them over the radio at least, and they sounded okay. I don't have a clue what happened, though. Zach climbed in the truck and shut the door. I think they blew their way in through the roof, both ends of the building at exactly the same time. There was gravel and flaming tar flying everywhere. That explained the gravel she'd seen. They'd been on the roof. She and Zach sat in silence, watching the monitors and trying to figure out what was going on, but it was too dark and chaotic. A lot of people had gotten hurt in the little gang wars, so the monitors were filled with EMTs, uniformed officers, and SWAT team members rendering first aid. The motel looked like a scene out of The motel looked like a scene out of a MASH episode as an endless stream of ambulance gurneys rolled in and right back out. How old is this person? Because I don't think a lot of people are going to get the MASH reference, and I'm sure there have been a lot of TV shows since then that she could have used instead of that. She was going to be sick if she kept trying to watch this crazy scene, but she couldn't tear herself away until she knew Gage was okay. When she finally caught a quick flash of his tall, broad-shouldered form in one of the other men's cameras, she let out a breath she hadn't realized that she'd been holding. He was safe. She could breathe again. I don't know. I've never been in a situation where the man I care for more than anything, I guess, was in danger. Well, he was kind of. There was a tornado warning where he was. Does that count? No. 20 minutes later, Becker and one of the team's medics, Senior Corporal Trey Duncan, came out to give him an update. Cooper and Nelson, our demo guys, blew entry points to the roof in 4 different places. Becker said it so casually, as if they did this stuff every day. Yeah, they fucking do this every day. Then the whole team dropped through right in the middle of each gang. Are the hostages okay? How many gangs were there? Is everyone okay? Everyone in the unit is fine. A few minor nicks and scratches, but that's about it. Duncan frowned. Some of the hostages are in pretty bad shape, though. At least 3 were shot before we even went in, and 2 more were hit during the rescue. The gangbangers seem pretty intent on taking on as many people with them as possible. They're on their way to the hospital now, but we don't know if they're all going to make it. Max shook her head. Sergeant Dixon asked me to tell you that he's going to be here for a few more hours. He thought you might want to call it a night. Then he and Duncan left to go back to the motel. Zach glanced at her after the 2 cops stepped out of the operating vehicle. Silly question, but I'm guessing you're going to stay. Yeah, I want to hang around and make sure they're all okay. He grinned. I thought so. You gonna need me at the compound tomorrow? She shook her head. I don't think so. I'll see you at the paper. After Zach left, Mac turned attention back to the monitors, patiently waiting to catch another glimpse of Gage. Gage was so tired he could barely keep his eyes open. All he wanted to do was go home, fall into bed, and pass out for a few hours until the alarm went off and he had to get up and do this all over again. But Mackenzie insisted he needed to eat and kept telling him that until he stopped at the next fast food drive-thru they came to. Don't stare at the burrito, she scolded gently. Eat it. What is up with all of these books and this eating fixation? I've read 2. I've read more that I haven't read for you all. There's always this thing about eating. I mean, yes, I know food is pretty important, and I'm kind of hungry right now, but come on. He forced himself to take a bite, closing his eyes for a moment as a spicy beef filling hit his tongue. Maybe he wasn't too tired to eat after all. Next to him, Mackenzie bit into her own burrito. Gage had been surprised to find her waiting for him when he'd climbed into the operations vehicle. He thought she'd left hours ago, but she told him she wanted to wait. It might be selfish, but he was glad she had. Seeing her beautiful face after the long-ass day he had made him feel a little less exhausted. The 2 incidents he'd gone on weren't the only reason he was dragging. The other was that the argument he'd gotten into with his pack that morning after PT. He thought that after yesterday his guys wouldn't mind sitting down with Mackenzie for a one-on-one interview, but they'd been flat out pissed at the idea. That's too damn bad because you're going to do it anyway, he told them. If it's any consolation, you don't have to put up with Miss Stone snooping around much longer. How do you know that? McCall asked. Yeah, Kendrick's eyes narrowed. Just how involved with this reporter are you? Is there something going on that you haven't told us? Are these his fucking kids? Like, what? Gage bit back a snarl. What the hell is that supposed to mean? Cooper looked up from his graphic novel he was thumbing through. He means, are you sleeping with her? Who the fuck cares? Gage had been so shocked he just stood there staring at his explosive expert like a damn pig with a Rolex. Well, are you? Cooper demanded. Mind your fucking business, Cooper. Gage had to clench his hands into fists to keep them from slugging the man. Getting into a brawl with Cooper might be satisfying as hell, but it would only confirm what he and the rest of the team feared. That he was letting his attraction to Mackenzie cloud his judgment, and he was putting the pack at risk. Oh, blah, blah, blah. He understood where their concern was coming from, even if it was misplaced. No, he said as evenly as he could manage. We're not sleeping together. Bullshit, Xander snarled. We can smell her all over you. Gage hadn't even realized he'd moved toward a senior squad leader until Mike stepped in front of him and put a hand on his chest. Brooks moved to stand next to Xander. Sergeant, how do we know she isn't playing you? She isn't playing me, he growled. How can you be sure? Mike asked. I just know it, damn it, he snapped. That's because he is playing her. That probably wouldn't be good enough for them, but he didn't know how to put it into words. Mackenzie might have come here looking for a story that first day, but something in his gut told him that that wasn't the reason she kept coming back. It's only been a couple of days. Xander swore under his breath. It's not just having her finding out about us, Gage. Having her around is dangerous. Gage frowned. What the hell are you talking about? For one thing, you're not thinking clearly, Xander said. Hardy sent his goons to rough you up, and you didn't seem to give a damn. Like hell I don't. Yeah? Well, you haven't mentioned what you're going to do about it. I don't know, you're a cop. What are you going to do about it? Xander shook his head. Anyway, it's not just that. She's putting off pheromones all of us are picking up, and it's affecting some of the younger wolves. To say it's a distraction is an understatement. It's going to get somebody killed. Because men can't control themselves around beautiful women. In this case, a pheromone woman. Pheromone woman? How do they function in society? How do they walk through the streets? Because, women can be turned on at any point. Like, you could be walking down the street and thinking of something sexy and be completely turned on. How do these men control themselves around women like this? Ugh. That's when things had gotten really ugly. Not everyone in the pack agreed with Xander, and the guys had taken sides. The ones who went against Gage weren't only pissed about Mackenzie, they were calling him out as pack leader. There had been a few stare-downs over the years, but it had never gone further than that, and certainly never with any of the more senior werewolves. So what, you're gonna supplant the dude, and what are you gonna fucking tell your department? He's your friggin' boss. Hello? Sorry, this part is just really stupid. But this fight was going to make the scuffle in the weight room with the other day look like child's play, but it would definitely be shed. Or it would have been if Cooper hadn't diffused the situation with one simple question. Max the one, isn't she? Gage didn't answer. He didn't have to. The rest of the pack retracted their claws, suddenly more interested in debating whether the myth was real and what that meant for the pack. If Mackenzie Stone was really the one for him, would it keep her from spilling their secret if and when she discovered it? Did the intense attraction have the same effect on her too? Well, clearly. Gage hoped to God it did, but he didn't know much about it. Unfortunately, neither did Cooper. But before Gage could say anything, dispatch had called about the hostage situation at the mall. Should we drive through again and get you another burrito? Mackenzie's soft voice interrupted his thoughts, and he looked down to see he'd not only eaten the entire burrito, but had practically licked the wrapper clean, too. He grinned and crumpled the wrapper. Nah, I think I'm good. She didn't look convinced. You could have some of mine if you want. Thanks, but I think it's time to get you home. It's late. She didn't protest as he started the car. It was well after midnight, and she looked as exhausted as he did. She finished the rest of her burrito in silence, then leaned back in the seat. Does she not have a car? How does she live in Dallas and not have a car? Gage had to resist the urge to pull over just so he could see if her lips were as sweet as he remembered from that afternoon. He tightened his grip on the wheel and forced his attention back on the road. Xander had been right. He didn't think clearly when he was around her. Xander was right about something else, too. Mackenzie was a distraction to the team. Gage had thought that they were tense because they were worried she'd stumble on their secret. But now he realized it was because her pheromones were making him crazy. Mackenzie was jonesing bad for him, and his pack knew it. Gage thought again about what Cooper said. He never believed the myth about every werewolf having one perfect soulmate waiting somewhere out there for him. He'd always thought it was something werewolves came up with to explain why they had such shitty luck with women. I mean, there's a lot of fucking people out there, man. They had shitty luck with women because werewolves were moody, secretive, aggressive, and just plain crappy at connecting on a human level. Or so he thought. But maybe Cooper was onto something. Maybe Mackenzie was the one. That also explained why he couldn't think clearly when he was with... Wait, sorry, let me do that again. What else could explain why he couldn't think clearly when he was with her? Maybe he dated a lot of women, and none of them ever had this kind of effect on him. Oh, sorry, because he dated a lot of women. And how do you know she's not just playing you? Like you're playing her? Brooke's words echoed in his head. What if he was so blinded by Mackenzie that he couldn't see what was right in front of him? Gage glanced at her as he pulled into the parking garage. She could barely keep her eyes open. She was so tired. Looking at her right then, he was ashamed for even thinking she might be using him. Do you want to come in for a while? Mackenzie asked when they got to her door. Man, he wanted to, but he needed to put some space between them if he was ever going to sort out the jumbled mess of emotions he was feeling. It's late, we're both beat. He brushed her hair back from her face. Rain check? Of course, she said, then frowned. Are you sure you're not too tired to drive home? Maybe we should stay and sleep on the couch. He chuckled. If I stay, something tells me neither one of us will be getting any sleep. I think it's better I go. Okay. She gave him a stern look. But you have to promise to text me and let me know you got home okay, right? I will. He tilted her face to gently kiss her on the mouth. The feel of her lips under his was enough to make him say the hell with it and take her up on her offer. He needed to get out of here, now. I'll see you tomorrow. She smiled and went up on tiptoe to press her lips to his once more. Wait. When did they get out of the car? She smiled and went up on her tiptoe to press her lips to his once more. Count on it. Damn, she was making it hard to believe she wasn't the one. Why else would it be so hard to turn and walk away from her? But when did you guys get out of the car? Okay, so they magically teleported outside of the car. Okay, so that was chapter 7. All of it. Yeah, I don't know. I don't know what else to say.